guys, it's Lelo. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about something very sensitive and a topic that I've been asked so many times about. We're going to talk about love after going through a divorce. So yeah, let's get into it. So as you may have known that I went through a divorce 2 years ago, and yeah, it's been such a crazy 2 years, and I've spoken about it in my social media pages, in interviews, and yeah, I think I've spoken so much about it. But the one question that keeps trending, the one question that people always ask me is, now that that part of my life is finished and people have seen that I'm now seeing someone again, and how did I get to that point where I allow myself to love again? It's a very good question, because at some point I never thought that I would love again. I never thought that I'd open my heart to somebody else. Just because, I mean, separation, divorce, a breakup breaks you literally, and you go through the most, and you go through all the emotions, and where you find yourself in a place where you don't want to be vulnerable to anyone ever again. And I think the most important thing for me was to allow myself, to go through the journey and surrender to the journey. That was the most important thing for me. I did not rush it, and I allowed myself to feel the emotions, because at some point I felt angry, at some point I felt sad, and at some point I was mad. And I think, yeah, for me it was just to allow myself to go through those emotions. And at some point people would ask me, would you ever get married again? And I would say no. I think it depended on which day you asked me, because then sometimes I would say no, never. And then on other days I'd be like, yes, I mean, sure, I would open myself up for that. But I think knowing what I know now, the journey is different for each and every person, and it's all about understanding exactly the path that you are in, and knowing and surrendering, like I said, to your own personal journey, and also trusting God. I think that's the one lesson that I've learned, to trust God about my journey, because He's the one who knows it all. I can make my own plans. The Bible says that in Proverbs, that we make our own plans, but God is the one who directs our steps. So allowing yourself to be led and guided by God, I think that's the most important thing. So for me, going into the dating scene, I did not plan it. So I gave myself time. If you've been through a breakup or a divorce, you know that when you actually do the actual deed of filing for divorce or walking away or moving out, whatever the case, by that time you've already signed out. So for me it was like that. At the time we actually did the actual separation, I think we had been separated for like more than a year, almost 2 years. We had been separated but living in the same house. That happens. So I understood the minute that we started living apart and we started the divorce journey that I was broken, and I had a lot of healing to go through, and my journey was a long way ahead of me, and I did not rush right back into dating or being in a relationship. I was emotionally exhausted, because I felt that I had given my all to that relationship, to that marriage. So it was only natural for me to feel drained, and that's exactly what I felt. I felt very drained, and there was no way that I was going to walk into another relationship feeling like that. So that was the first step for me, to allow myself a chance to heal. So I allowed myself the chance to heal, and just allowed myself to be alone, because I married quite young, so I never had a chance to be alone. So I went straight from my mother's house to my husband's house, if I can say it like that. So I never had a chance to be alone. I never had a chance to know who I am, what I want, and what I love. So I told myself that now it's me time, and I'm going to use that chance to discover or to rediscover myself. And also another thing is that marriage, most women, when we get married, we lose ourselves. I think that's the biggest mistake I made as well. I lost myself in the process, or in the marriage itself, in the relationship itself, because it becomes all about the husband, the children, all the roles that you have to play, and you are the last person that you consider or you think about. So I had to unlearn that, and I had to put myself first, because I realized that for me to be a good mother to the children, I had to be happy, I had to be in a good space. So that's the first thing that I did, And walking into the dating scene, so I gave myself time. I think it was about 2 years or something before I even opened up myself for a relationship. And in that time, people come to you, people approach you, people propose to you, and I think the biggest shock for me was the dating scene. So understanding the dating scene, because it was definitely not what it used to be 15 years ago. So it was completely different. It was a culture shock for me, because it was not dating anymore. It's like now it's literally like hooking up, because it's mostly, people don't meet anymore, it's mostly online, you chat and each other, and you start talking today, and by the end of today you've already, you're already talking about sex and things like that. So for me, that was a culture shock, because I felt like before, you used to take time to get to know a person, go on dates and, engage. But now it's completely different. If you're lucky, you can have a week long relationship. That's how bad it is, So for me, that was a culture shock, and it took a while for me to understand that. And at some point, I just stopped engaging, because I just felt, it's all about just hooking up, hooking up. It's literally that. So I just stopped engaging, because I felt that I'm not ready for this. And another thing that I also realized is that as soon as you open yourself up, you start, that's when you actually, the total healing happens, because that's when the triggers happen, and that's where you realize how far you've come and the things that you still need to work on. Because now that you're talking to another man or another guy, there are certain things that he will do that remind you of your previous relationship, things that he will do, things that he will say, things that will trigger emotion, And that's when you realize that, I still need to work on this. I still need to work on trust. I still need to work on my insecurities. I still need to work on that. So those are some of the things that I had to learn. And going through therapy as well. I always recommend therapy, because for me, that helped me a lot, because then I had to face myself, and I had to unlearn, and I had to go through each and everything that happened. I think the most important thing and the hardest thing to do after a breakup is to acknowledge the mistakes that you made that contributed to the failure of the relationship. So it's important for you to do that, because then it helps you to work on those things, and it helps you not to go with all of that baggage to the next relationship. So that helped me a lot, and I had to forgive myself as well, because there were things that I did to contribute to that. So I had to forgive myself as well. I had to ask for forgiveness from the other person, So that helped me a lot. And another thing is that what we do when we go into this new world or the dating scene is that, because you are divorced, you come from a 15-year-old marriage, you've got kids, you feel like now you are second best, you're no longer worth it, and they will make you feel like that. So you need to know your worth. I think that's also a very important thing to know, because you need to realize that you are still the prize. That's something that I had to remind myself very quickly, because when you're with people, people will make you feel as if they're doing you a favor, just by talking to you, by engaging with you, by going out with you is like we're doing you a favor. You know, you've already, you in your mid-30s, you already have 3 kids, so you don't really have a lot of options. And that is a lie. And unfortunately, it's a lie that we as women, we believe as well. So I am so glad that I realized that very quickly, that I am still the catch, I am still the prize. And if you get a chance to even engage with me or talk to me, you know, you are the one who's advantaged, not the other way around. So people will make you feel like you are not worth it anymore because you are divorced and things like that. And it's very important that you recognize those red flags, because we like to shade them, we color them in. I like saying that we color them in because you see, I mean, your instincts tell you, the Holy Spirit tells you, you discern, you know when something is not right, and you know when you are pushing too much or you are doing too much. And it's very important that a relationship should be two-way. It shouldn't be like me forcing things all the time just because I feel like, you are doing me a favor. So there are certain things that are red flags, and when you come from a relationship that has been that long, you know exactly those things, you recognize those things. So it's very important that when you see those things, you recognize them and you decide right there, don't waste any more time. You decide right there that this is not going to be good for me and you are not the guy for me. No matter how good you think they look, or no matter how good you think you two look, I feel like you need to make a decision and walk away at that point in time, because it gets worse. Because if you start ignoring red flags early on in the relationship, it only gets worse. So that's another thing that I learned. And one thing that I can say about loving again is that it takes faith. I don't have a formula, I don't have a manual. You can read all the books. I mean, I did that. I watched videos, I watched sermons, I read books, and there's a certain, you learn a lot about compatibility and that you should go for a guy like this. And also people will set you up on dates. I had that so many times where people try to hook you up with people. Then your close family and friends will be like, no, this time you must try a guy like this. You deserve a guy like this. And unfortunately, you can't design your own person. That person doesn't exist, because I was also like that. I thought that since I was married to a guy like this, now going forward, I need to make sure that it's the opposite of what I had. Now he needs to be like this, he needs to have money, he needs to have like this, he needs to be tall, he needs to be dark, he needs to be... So I had a whole list, and unfortunately that guy did not exist. So that's why I'm saying that you need to trust God, because I realized that actually God knows what I need, and for me that is most important, because if I go according to my own knowledge, according to my own understanding, then along the way I am going to get stuck, I'm going to get trouble, and then where do I go, So I don't know why us as women, we trust God with the most, we trust God with everything else. We trust God with everything else, but except the most important thing, which is choosing a life partner, So I learned that as well, that God knows exactly what I need as Lelo going forward, moving on into the next chapter, into the next thing that He's called me into. He knows what I need. So He has the perfect person for me, So trusting God and discerning. I remember I had a talk with my mentor, and I asked her, but how will I know? Because I have all these people now who are interested in me. And one thing she told me, she was like, you will discern, And she told me that you need to stop being carnal about it, because that's what we do. We become so carnal about it because it becomes about the material things, what he can do for me. Because now I'm independent, I'm established, I've got this and that. So he needs to come with whatever, and So she told me that you need to discern, and you can't discern if you're not connected to God, if you're not connected to the Holy Spirit. So she said you will know, you will know, you will discern, and you just need to trust God and not be carnal about it, because He knows exactly what you need. So that has been my journey, and the man that I'm with now, I think the first thing that I saw in him was God. I mean, I had been with other people before, briefly with other people, you know, and I think that's one thing that I longed for, because I know that I am a very spiritual person, and most people find me too deep, you know. And I think that's the other problem that I had in my relationship, is that I had to stoop very low in a way, or I had to pretend that I was not as spiritual just to make the other person comfortable, because then your character is too strong for another person. And I told myself that I will never ever do that again. So the next person or whoever wants to be with me, they need to handle me as Lelo and whatever I come with. So if I am too strong of a character for him, there's no way that I'm going to pretend that I'm not, or belittle myself just to accommodate him and his ego. So that was very important to me, and that's what I prayed to God about. So that's why I appreciated the fact that when I met him, he spoke a different language, you know. He spoke to my heart. He spoke to the God in me. And that's the most important thing for me. I think that moved me in a way, because you can be moved by you can be moved by the way a guy dresses. You can be moved by the way, what he drives or whatever. But those things, they fade away, you know. And the most important thing that will last forever, for eternity, is the God in him. So for me, that was very important, and that made me pay attention. And I think that's what I went to God and I prayed about, that God, this is exactly what I have been praying to you about. This is what I need, you know. And I also took my time, because that's another thing, you know, there's no rush. So if a person is really there with good intentions, there's no reason for you to feel under pressure to do anything, you know. Everything should just come naturally. So for me, that was it, that we need to create a friendship, and we need to connect, you know. We need to connect, we need to relate, especially on a spiritual level. So yeah, I think that's what I can share with you guys about my journey in loving again. It's not easy. The triggers will always be there, I think, because the process of healing is ongoing. It never stops. But I think you must just be open for it, and you don't have to rush it. When it happens, it will happen, and it will be lovely, and it will be beautiful, you know, when it happens on time. And there's no way that you're going to see it or you're going to experience it if you don't have God in your life. That's my dog. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. It has come to the end, and yeah, I appreciate all your comments, and yeah, see you next time. Bye.